Gurmaigad Mary Rose agus Gurmaigad Funyan Fuelche agus se hiadol she's mar chakta dela etual boil and Fuelche war rovali gaji na glantin shaw and etual skal sauri vigil agus tema fear wead and costa agrahan na koyudu a vein shaw a rishtim gianne la and keshaw a flay agus tasulugum gamay jeshbrat spaceul agus annual looking la clonston tranon new. It's great to see such a large turnout for such an event, and I understand there's been very big turnouts over the last number of nights, and it's a testament to the organising committee who have been able to put on such a school like this over many, many decades, and in particular to Joe Mulholland, who has been a champion of this school, but also of this area. And this school has not only brought debate and a space for that type of debate, as Mary Rose has mentioned, but has also given a very necessary boost to this town of Glenties. And that's something, as a local representative, I want to thank, and I hope that it will continue for many, many years into the future. When we're discussing When we're discussing our corporate tax system, we need to start by looking at the global impact of corporate tax avoidance. And too often this question gets either ignored entirely or is included only as an afterthought to the discussion on taxation. Last year, the United Nations University found that $500 billion each year is lost to governments globally through tax dodging. The immediate impact of this corporate tax avoidance is that it deprives governments across the globe of vital revenue that should be used to invest in public services, to invest in infrastructure and in other types of investment. But as even more important impact can be seen in the issues of obscene inequality and the rise of such. Last year, 82% of all wealth created went to the richest 1% of the population, while the wealth of the poorest 3.7 billion people didn't increase at all. Here at home, we're in the top 20% globally for GDP per capita, but we're in the bottom 20% when it comes to wealth inequality. Liberal and social democracies have been built on the foundation of a tax collection system that is redistributive. It's not only the process of corporate globalization itself that has fueled political instability and the rise of right-wing extremism around the world, but the extreme inequality that has accompanied that type of globalization and that type of tax avoidance. And Ireland plays a major role in the global chain of corporate tax avoidance, directly contributing to poverty, injustice, inequality, internationally, here and at home. And the title of this discussion that we're asked to debate here at MacGill presupposes our values, presupposes that our values are held in common and are unquestionably positive. But I don't accept this. The fact is, we've 10,000 people homeless in this state as we speak here. There are over 700,000 people on waiting lists in Ireland. And if we think that this is unacceptable, if we collectively believe this, then we'd have done something about it. This is a political, economic and social question, and it is a contested one. I'm on the side that says that it's not acceptable to have a crisis in our housing and health sector in the scale that we see, while we have huge multinationals paying very little tax as a percentage of what others pay. My values inform that position. That's what guides me. And I can only conclude that others who don't hold the same position as me have different values than me. Take the taxation of our bailed out banks, for example. Last year, we seen when the three banks announced their profits, AIB, Bank of Ireland and Permanent TSB, made combined profits of €2.5 billion. €2.5 billion, but didn't pay a single penny of corporation tax. Why is that? Because the government in 2015 removed the rule in a finance bill ensuring that they couldn't carry forward losses for a generation. Many of these banks won't pay any corporation tax for the next 20 years. So instead of collecting 200 million each year that we could invest in services or in the crises that many in this state face, we have decided to make these banks more profitable, banks which have caused so much damage to our society, and the government has decided to give them a free ride. So there is always a political choice to make, and in my view, we've been making some of the wrong choices for too long. I don't want to focus here on the debate on whether or not Ireland as a state qualifies as a tax haven, because I think it's a distraction. I think it's the wrong question. The facts are that Ireland plays an important role in global tax avoidance industry. It acts as a conduit state for profit shifting, primarily for US headquartered multinationals here, and it has deliberately developed a specialised system that allows for massive tax avoidance by companies dealing in intellectual property, especially technology giants. The impact of our corporate tax system is harmful both domestically and internationally. And without doubt, Ireland has a reputation of being a tax haven. I believe this is profoundly damaging to our interests, and it's damaging in three ways. Firstly, reputation is playing an increasingly important role when it comes to business decisions and where major companies want to locate in the future. Secondly, it's damaging in relation to international relations, and it reduced our goodwill towards Ireland around the world. And thirdly, it undermines our negotiating powers in institutions such as the EU and the OECD. The Apple case remains the best example of what is wrong with our tax system. Firstly, we have a historic role of successive governments in providing sweetheart deals to a major multinational alongside a complicit revenue agency. Then we have our government's farcical decision, in my view, to spend tens of millions of your money to challenge the Commission state aid ruling. And worst of all, we now know that our government bent over backwards to design a system to ensure that Apple would continue to pay an extremely low rate of corporation tax here. We wouldn't have known the details of this if it wasn't for the leaks in relation to the Paradise Papers. Apple organised a new structure in 2015 after the Commission's investigation, and that included the relocation of non-US sales, of its non-US sales and IP from Nowhere, this stateless company, to Ireland, and the relocation of its overseas cash to Jersey. Despite this, there was no observable corresponding increase in corporation tax received from Apple by revenue from the years 2015 to 2017. So they onshored all this IP, but the taxes didn't go up. Why? Because with the assistance of the Irish government, Apple has successfully created a new structure that allows for IP and sales profits to be onshored, but the company is granted a tax write-off against almost all of its non-US sales profits. It's based on the use of full capital allowances for expenditure on intangibles and massive intergroup loans to purchase the IP, with full deductions on the interest paid on these loans in order to cancel out the tax bill that should arise from the sales profits here in Ireland. The structure is now described as the typical replacement for the double Irish by some of the offshore magic circle law firms. Our government has talked a lot about reform and talked a lot about fairness, but each time it closes the door in one loophole, and on many occasions it has to be dragged to that position, it opens the window on another. It has outsourced our public policy in this area to the corporate law firms and the big four accounting firms who design much of what goes into our finance bills in relation to these issues, and it ignores glaring conflicts of interest. So the government's position can be summarised as this, is what they've done in the last couple of years. They've ended the statelessness of companies, but then they introduced the knowledge development box and expanded the research and development tax credit that we know multinationals are driving a horse and car through. They phase out the double Irish, but raise the cap on capital allowances of intangible assets from 80% to 100% at the same time. And then they accept that this was the wrong thing to do, and they increase the cap to 100%. They believe that the cap is unjustifiable, and they restore it back to 80%, but they don't apply it to the IP that was onshored from 2015 to 2017. And what this means is that Apple is able to, for example, go without paying close to €750 million in tax that should be coming to our revenue each year. The government's reaction to the tax haven label reminds me of the famous scene from Casablanca where the captain says, "I'm shocked to find that gambling is going on here." So we need to just get a grip with this, and we need to stop pretending to be shocked at the accusation that we are a tax haven. The popular political pressure on this issue, which was fueled by scandals such as LuxLeaks and the Panama Papers, continues to grow, and it will continue to grow. The reality we all need to urgently face, and particularly the government, is that we've signed up on paper to help in create a new global system that ensures profits are taxed in the place where the wealth is created. And that is a good thing. And the process will happen with or without us, whether we are on board or not. And that means profound changes are coming down the line. And we'll begin to feel the effects of those changes within the next 5 years. The full implementation of the OECD BEPS action points and the EU's anti-tax avoidance directive over the next several years will change the legislative framework significantly. It will reduce the ability for profit shifting, and these initiatives are proportionate and directly targeting at tackling cross-border tax avoidance, and Ireland should implement these measures on time and in full. I share the government's concerns of the EU's proposals for a common consolidated corporate tax base, the CCCTB, and the digital tax, because I believe it infringes on our economic sovereignty. Without a doubt, some in the EU are using this issue to push for greater tax and economic harmonisation, something that's been on the agenda for many, many years. But we should bear in mind that despite the opposition of Ireland and a small number of other European countries in the EU Council, these proposals are likely to be adopted by a subgroup of the European Union through the enhanced cooperation procedure, and our revenue will be significantly impacted regardless of whether we're on board or not. The overhaul of the US federal tax regime is another factor we've not seen yet see the full impact of, and that impact will be felt here in Ireland. Brexit also poses economic threats to Ireland in more ways than through trade and potential political instability related to the border and the Irish question. While many financial firms will likely relocate to Dublin and other places post-Brexit, many multinationals have already relocated or indicated their intentions to relocate from Europe to Britain. So it's not all one-way traffic. And for all of these reasons, we face the prospect in the near future of a potential sudden shock to a source of revenue that we've become dangerously dependent on. Any one of these factors could cause a sudden and sharp decline in corporate tax receipts. Alarm bells should be ringing in government offices and the institutions of the state. And these factors present both a significant threat to our existing harmful tax model, as well as an important opportunity to make considered transition to a fairer tax system in a way that protects jobs, in a way that protects foreign direct investment flows into this country. And make no mistake about it, Sinn Féin is absolutely serious about our commitment to protecting FDI flows and ensuring that it continues to play a strong and vital role in our economy, including maintaining the attractive corporation tax rate of 12.5%. And we've walked the walk when it comes to attracting FDI. In his time as Deputy First Minister, Martin McGuinness travelled to the boardrooms in China, to the Emirates, in India and Canada, and to the United States, visits which all led to concrete investments of foreign direct investment into Ireland. And we will actively make priority FDI a priority because investment in our economy and the jobs that it creates is essential to the vision that we have for our country. I urge you to conclude, I believe the government's approach of doing the bare minimum to combat tax avoidance poses an unacceptable risk to both our economy and to our reputation. I want to see Ireland engage willingly and in good faith with our international partners to build a system that puts an end to corporate tax avoidance and the inequalities that generates. Instead of opposing the introduction of public country-by-country reporting in the Council, we should be championing it as a state. Instead of dragging our heels on the updated anti-money laundering directive, we should be introducing public registers of beneficial owners now. Instead of waiting for international rules to kick in, we should immediately shut down the most exploitative schemes, restoring the cap on capital allowances scheme for intangible assets, reviewing the R&D tax credit scheme, and taxing the bailed-out banks. I want to see an Irish economy that is renowned for a world-leading quality education system. R&D and infrastructure that allows technological innovation and ingenuity to flourish here, rather than simply storing the IP created in Silicon Valley for tax reasons. The Irish people want world-class services, universal public services, like those enjoyed in many modern economies throughout the world. And we know that the current boom in our corporate tax revenues is unsustainable. All of us agree in relation to that. And that is why we need to invest in the future while we can. In the upcoming budget, for Budget 2019, I'm proposing a series of initiatives to turn the temporary boom into a permanent benefit for the Irish people by investing the €1.4 billion available to us in that budget that the government is refusing to invest. The immediate reforms I've outlined above would bring in an extra €1 billion in relation to tax, and we should put that into capital expenditure, especially in housing, and we should invest in education, which is the cornerstone of our economy. We'd be strengthening our infrastructure and meeting social demands at the same time. And all of these are choices that any party of government can make, based on certain values. Until now, we have been putting the wealthiest corporations in the world before the basic needs of our citizens, and in doing so, we have contributed to massive inequality around the world. This needs to stop, and it is coming to an end, with us or without us. So now is the time for a fundamental rethink of our role in the tax avoidance industry and a transition to a fairer economy and a society. Gur maith agaibh.